So we're really honored today to be able to hear from Simon Stiell, the Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, who I will introduce in a minute. And after Mr. Stiell makes some opening remarks, he will be sitting down with speakers who can draw on their experience stewarding two of the largest pension and sovereign wealth funds in the world, trying to safeguard the nearly $3 trillion which millions of savers in their countries depend on. And I'm going to introduce them first. I'm going to start with Hiromichi Mizuno, who almost needs no introductions. For an audience of institutional investors, I feel a little bit like I'm trying to introduce Taylor Swift. And maybe I should be charging ticket fees too. So Hiro served as the Chief Investment Officer of Japan's Government Pension Investment Fund. It is the largest pension fund in the world from 2015 to 2020. And there he really demonstrated his conviction that the only way to meet his responsibilities to the fund's beneficiaries was to improve the performance of the entire economy. And that includes tackling climate change globally and by catalyzing companies to enlarge their talent pool by drawing more women into the workforce and into management ranks. If you've ever had the pleasure of speaking with Hiro, which I hope you will be able to this evening, you know that very few financial leaders in the world can articulate the case for creating sustainable value quite as clearly and as compellingly and as charmingly as Hiro can. So since stepping down from GPIF, Hiro has served as a member of the board of directors of Tesla and a special envoy of the UN Secretary General on Innovative Finance and Sustainable Investments. So when you do have that drink with him, you can ask from his vantage point whether Elon Musk or Antonio Guterres actually has a tougher job. Currently, he serves as a director of Livewire Group, among other appointments. And most recently, he joined MSCI as special advisor to MSCI chairman and CEO Henry Fernandez. He will also be advising the MSCI Sustainability Institute and helping the Institute build an advisory group and set its strategic direction. We're thrilled that Hiro will be leading a conversation on the investor response to the messages from the UNFCCC's Executive Secretary. And joining him will be Karina Smith Iheanacho, whose name I'm sorry that I probably did not pronounce correctly. And she's responsible for the governance and compliance at Norges Bank Investment Management. So Norges Bank Investment Management is part of the Norwegian Central Bank, managing the world's largest sovereign wealth fund with assets of $1.4 trillion. So with 70% of the fund's assets allocated to equities, the fund owns, on average, 1.5% of the world's listed companies. So that is a lot of engagement power, which I'm sure Karina is going to talk about. So prior to joining Norges, Karina was Vice President of Legal and Chief Compliance Officer at Statoil, the Norwegian state-owned multinational energy company. She has extensive board experience in addition to her deep experience in finance and the energy industry. Now I'm honored to welcome our opening speaker. So in November, delegates from nearly 200 countries will gather for the COP28 climate conference in Dubai. Simon Stiell will preside over that gathering as Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Mr. Stiell, who was appointed to his post by the UN Secretary General in August of 2022, knows firsthand the realities of global warming and the imperative to help developing countries. Before his current job, he served as Minister for Climate Resilience and the Environment in his native Grenada, after serving as a senior government minister and member of Grenada's Upper House of Parliament. 2 weeks ago, the UNFCCC released a report taking stock of the world's collective climate action. Its conclusion: much more action is needed now, on all fronts and by all actors, if we are to avoid the costliest warming. Analysis by MSCI of the world's listed companies has been showing much the same. So we estimate, as the MSCI Net Zero Tracker, which we have published quarterly, that publicly listed companies contribute to about 1/5 of global warming. And despite a tripling of those companies over the past 3 years that have made commitments to achieve net zero by 2050, publicly listed companies are still on track to overshoot their collective budget for staying under 1.5 degrees in just about 3 years from now. So Executive Secretary Steele has been a force in advocating for a just transition and for strengthening collaboration between nations and the financial sector. We're really honored that he has made time in, probably one of the busiest weeks on his calendar to be joining us here today to discuss what more and better the private sector finance can do to speed the transition. Please help me welcome the Executive Secretary of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Simon Steele.
Thank you very much.
I think you might still need to hold this.
Okay, thank you very much. It was quite a trek across town to get here, so apologies for my late arrival. So, colleagues, friends, it's good to be in your company for the launch of the MSCI Sustainability Institute. I welcome the Institute's planned focus on climate change to further enhance collaboration between finance, government, business, academia, and civil society. There is an urgency to this work. We're in the midst of a climate emergency. Possibly, I think records will show it is the hottest year on record, with extreme weather events wreaking death, devastation, and misery all across the world. And yet, this could just be the sign of worse to come. And what we are seeing today is what the scientists have been telling us for years. Our recently released synthesis report on the global stocktake, the first comprehensive assessment of how far we've progressed in implementing the Paris Agreement, shows we are far off track in limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The science is clear. We need to cut emissions by 43% by 2030. That's less than 7 years from now. And to reach net zero by 2050. However, the current level of climate commitments by governments, the nationally determined contributions, the NDCs, will lead to emission cuts of only 0.3% by 2030. So as I said, very, very far off track. So we're short of action and we're short of ambition. COP28 in Dubai is our chance to make a dramatic course correction. Based on the comprehensive assessment of the global stocktake, we can recalibrate our efforts to get back on track, to scale up our efforts across all areas, increase ambition in the next round of nationally determined contributions due in 2025, so we can accelerate action in what's remaining of this critical decade of action. We need to map out key steps and milestones to decarbonize our economies while ensuring sustainable development and just transitions. This will require massive investments and shifts in financial flows. But if done in a way that supports pathways towards low emissions and climate resilient development, we can create opportunities to unlock trillions of dollars and shift investment to climate action at the scale that's needed. Colleagues, friends, finance is foundational within the UN climate talks. As we look ahead to COP28, we must progress on goals such as the delivery of the long-pledged $100 billion, a doubling of adaptation finance, a substantial replenishment of the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund. We need a global financial system, both public and private, that's aligned with climate action and green finance. The role of the financial sector, particularly asset owners like yourselves, is critical in directing financial flows to address climate change. Take the energy sector, for example. At COP28, there are opportunities to agree on the tripling of renewable capacity and doubling energy efficiencies by 2030. an opportunity. Mobilizing finance of trillions of dollars at scale is required to achieve these targets. Phasing down of unabated fossil fuels is also an inevitable step and crucial to meeting our Paris goals as articulated in the Global Stocktake Report. The cost of inaction is higher than cost of just transition, but we face some very, very difficult questions. Will asset owners divest their investments or not? How do we finance a transition away from fossil fuels? How to manage the trade-offs between short-term profits from fossil fuel investment and long-term sustainable growth? And I think within that, the three questions that were posed at the start, answers could be found within that. The private sector, particularly financial institutions like yourselves, can move faster than global political processes. Significant public finance packages were announced in North America, Europe, and Asia over the past couple of years. Private sectors are moving fast to expand not only production of solar panels, wind power turbines, electric vehicles and heat pumps, but also invest in new technologies such as hydrogen. The financial sector has a vital role to play in powering this transition. And it will be a collaborative effort by governments, businesses, financial institutions, civil societies, scientists, communities on the front lines, all going at this together. The MSCI Sustainable Institute is right to support this collaboration. Only by working together will we be able to drive the transition to a cleaner, greener, more prosperous and equitable future. I thank you.